Hey Facebook, welcome. It is of course Thursday, August 25th. We'll have a show, 2 streams going here in just a few seconds. On Facebook if you're tuning in, obviously, this is what you're watching right now. Also on YouTube, I'll be taking some questions today. We've got a bombshell video, more information coming from Julian Assange and WikiLeaks very soon. So we'll be getting to all this in a moment. Hey everybody. I'm Christopher Green. You're tuning into AMTV, Alternative Media Television. It is, of course, Thursday, August 25th, 2016. Welcome, YouTube, to the most badass broadcast, most hard-hitting broadcast on the planet. Hard-hitting and in your face. And Bill O'Reilly, if you keep stealing my shit, there's going to be some problems. That goes for anybody else out there. I've been hearing a lot of hard-hitting statements lately, which that's cool. You can say hard-hitting, Facebook. You can say hard-hitting on YouTube, but if you use the hard-hitting and in your face, we got a freaking problem. But we've got bigger problems than my registered trademark here at AMTV. Again, we've been doing this nearly 10 years now. I want to thank everybody for your tremendous support, putting me in a position, the position that I am, to deliver the truth on your behalf. It's quite a responsibility, and it is an honor. And we risk a lot to deliver the truth. Julian Assange. It's the title of today's video, to indict Hillary Clinton before the debates, before September 26th at Hofstra University in New York, according to him. And I think that there is legitimacy to this. Now, a lot of people will say, well, Christopher, you know, he talks a big talk, says he's going to drop a bombshell, and then nothing happens. We've seen a little bit of that in the past, and I think it's important that we all remain skeptical. In fact, we'll get into a little bit of Julian Assange, who he is, his upbringing, his personal life. Is he playing both sides? Is, you know, what kind of intelligence figure is he? Is he legit or not? I think he is to a degree. But regarding his threat, which is really what it is, regarding his warning, the charges will be brought against Hillary Rodham Clinton before the presidential debates by leaking through WikiLeaks, his organization, another bombshell, I think is legit and potentially could be major. Now remember, the last time Julian Assange said he had something big, he roiled the entire DNC. We saw this before the Democratic National Convention with the ouster and stepping down of Debbie Wasserman Schultz. 5 people, I believe it was, a total of 5, either had to step down or were fired as a result of the email leak that proved that the DNC is a corrupt POS. And they had been actively working against Bernie Sanders and his campaign from the very beginning. Something that I shared with you early on, I said was very obvious. Of course Bernie Sanders would endorse Hillary Rodham Clinton, that they just put him there basically to endorse her, whether or not he knew that or not. So when he makes a threat, when he makes a warning, puts out a warning like he just did, I think there's validity to it because he's backed it up with hardcore truth and hardcore evidence, as he did last night. And we're going to go to this clip in a moment. Hopefully we can bring it up. He was interviewed on Fox with Megyn Kelly. Let's see if we can go to that clip now.
Breaking tonight with just 75 days to go until the election, a series of unflattering new revelations about Hillary Clinton and possible influence peddling have come to light. And there are new reports now from campaign insiders that Mrs. Clinton plans to, quote, run out the clock, largely ignoring these controversies until the voters go to the polls. But our next guest has other plans. He says his website, WikiLeaks, is set to publish information that will not be helpful to Mrs. Clinton, and it may force her to respond. Moments ago, we had a lengthy and fascinating conversation with Julian Assange, co-founder and editor-in-chief of WikiLeaks. He only agreed to speak to us from an undisclosed location, since he is currently wanted for extradition by Sweden, and he's under investigation by the U.S. government, too, for his role in the largest leak of classified documents in U.S. history. Here is part 1 of that exclusive interview. Watch. Julian, thank you very much for being here. So let's start with the additional information you have regarding Hillary Clinton. When can we expect this information?
While we're working around the clock, we have received quite a lot of material, stimulated, of course, by the US election process and by our major DNC revelation, which has now led to the resignation of 5 top officials in the DNC, including Debbie Wasserman Schultz, the president, the last one late last week. So, you know, it's a complex business, what we do. We have to assess the veracity. We have a perfect 10-year record so far in never getting it wrong. We want to keep that reputation, understand how things should be formatted, what media we should be involved in, what is the best way to stage it out. Do we accumulate everything, assess it, publish it all in one batch, or do we do several batches? The approach that we've decided to take is that we do several batches.
But what, I mean, give us a general sense. I mean, are we going to see it before the November 8th election?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, in the case of the DNC leaks, for example, we pushed as fast as we could to try and get it in before the Democratic nomination conference, because obviously people have a right to understand who it is that they're nominating and what sort of process was involved. And the same is true here for the US electoral process. People involved in that election have the right to understand who it is they're electing.
Now, you've seen it, right? Can you tell us how significant you believe it is? I mean, compare its significance to what we saw released by WikiLeaks in July.
Well, I don't want to scoop ourselves. We have a lot of pages of material, thousands of pages of material. So no, I have not read every single page. We're hard at work in doing that, trying to understand, etc. I don't want to give the game away, but it's a variety of different types of documents from different types of institutions that are associated with the election campaign. Some quite unexpected angles that are you know, quite interesting. Some even entertaining.
Do you know, right now, according to the average of all polls, she's beating Donald Trump by 5.5 points nationwide. She's way ahead of him in most of the swing states, not all. Do you believe the information in your possession could be a game changer in the U.S. election?
I think it's significant. You know, it depends on how it catches fire in the public and in the media.
All right, we are back. So that clip aired last night. That was, of course, Julian ASSANGE, what they called, it's kind of funny, Megan's like, it's an undisclosed location at the Ecuadorian embassy in London. I think there's legitimacy to the claim, to the warning, and to the threat. He even said something along the lines, you'll find some entertainment value to the 1,000 more emails that will be pumped out to the viewing public prior to September 26th. I think in subtle reference to her health conditions. Again, we've done dozens and dozens of videos on this. Many of them have gone viral. Hillary Clinton and her team investigating Parkinson type drugs, obviously having these contortions on camera. So I think he was subtly referencing that as well. But what probably more than likely brings Hillary Clinton down is her foundation and the slush fund that made up this pay-to-play account, which is really no different than a mobster's pay-to-play slush fund or a criminal foundation. Assange says this, I have an encrypted file with a dead man's switch, and it is about Hillary Clinton. This is from USASupreme.com. When WikiLeaks released a mysterious file labeled WikiLeaks Insurance for people everywhere to download in advance of a huge upcoming announcement, everyone was having a second thought of what this file actually contains. The file serves as a type of dead man switch that is currently encrypted. WikiLeaks will release a second encryption key to unlock the file if they are prevented from making a planned announcement. Because of previous statements made by WikiLeaks and Julian Assange, many people are wondering if this insurance file is meant to ensure that WikiLeaks can release potentially damaging information about Hillary Clinton. Well, Assange gives a response to that question in an interview with an Australian journalist based in the United Kingdom, and his answer won't surprise many. Asked by the newscaster John, what is the reason for his leaks that have shaken this world? Assange gives a swift response. It is not about money or fame. It is about the truth. The people of this world deserve to know the truth. So essentially, Julian Assange, through his dead man switch, if anything happens to him, and for some reason he is unable, as we saw some perpetrator scale a wall at the Ecuadorian embassy, and even though it's within walking distance of the police, it took up to 2 hours for them to get there. It could have been a potential hit. God knows, maybe put out by the Clinton Eastern clan themselves. Who knows? He already has a very specific sequence of events and protocol that will take place that will release the truth. See, the file's already out there. People already have the emails. All they need is a second encryption key to unlock the truth of this damaging information that he's insinuating and that I believe could potentially take Hillary Rodham Clinton down for good. Going down in a ball of her own flames, in her own doing. Again, we talked about this in our live show 2 days ago, how Google is altering the search engine results when you look up Clinton body instead of Clinton body count. As being in Yahoo show, you get Clinton body shop. They want to hide the information, folks, and they want to hide the truth. Another story, Julian Assange, compounding this threat and warning. I will bring Hillary down before the debate stage on September 26. WikiLeaks editor Julian Assange has accused Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton of committing extortion by hyping fears over the possibility of a Republican victory in order to attract left-wing voters. Both Trump and Sanders supporters are waiting with bated breath for the next email dump from Julian Assange, the founder and editor-in-chief of WikiLeaks. He released hacked emails last month showing Democratic National Committee officials plotting to defeat Mrs. Clinton chief rival, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. Compounding the threat. You, of course, just watched the video. If you're tuned in on YouTube, if you're on Facebook, you'll have to pull it up separately. You just watched the video with Fox's Megyn Kelly. You see the little WikiLeaks, hourglass, dripping in the background. He's supposedly in an undisclosed location. He's actually in London at the Ecuadorian embassy. At least that's what we think. Maybe they've moved him. Who knows at this point? Chances are he's still there. Megyn interviews him, asks him specifically, do you believe that the information in your possession could be a game changer in the U.S. election? And he basically confirms that it potentially is. Again, a bombshell. Now, some of you are probably asking the question, which is a legitimate question. I mean, there's already been thousands of emails leaked. We already know that she lied about Benghazi Gate, that she set up a private email infrastructure, that she's responsible, quite frankly, even if it's just indirect responsibility for the death of Khazar Khan's son, a con job, by voting for the Iraq war. She's already got blood on her hands, folks. Christopher Stevens is dead. They didn't send an adequate response to the Libyan embassy. Several other Americans dead. They're responsible for the continuation of these wars in the Middle East, places like Syria, and the conflagration currently occurring in Ukraine. I put out a warning video there. We all know that to be fact. We all know now, as a result of an Associated Press release, that over half of the people she was doing business with while she was Secretary of the State was a pay-for-play scenario, meaning they paid a deposit, millions of dollars into her foundation, so that they could actually get her to do what they allegedly wanted her to do. Her husband, a freaking bold-faced liar, folks, said, I did not have sexual relations with that woman. Monica Lewinsky called it a right-wing conspiracy theory prior to Matt Drudge breaking the truth about that scandal. We've had all these facts already come out, so why isn't she in jail now? Why didn't the FBI Director James Comey press charges? And if he wouldn't press charges then, and the American people aren't helping to force that situation, why would they come now? Whatever Julian Assange potentially has up his sleeve, I think could be so damning there will be no ignoring it. And I don't think, if it's what we think it is, if it truly is a bombshell, and what Megyn Kelly here from Media Matters in this report is saying could be a game changer, I don't think that it could be ignored. Could be in reference to her health, could be in reference to her foundation, could be in reference to something that we can't even predict yet. Remember, Julian Assange came to fame really in 2010 with the leaked cables that came from Bradley Manning, now Chelsea, because she's strangely had a sex change. I don't know, people really just have trouble with their sexual identities nowadays, probably because of the mainstream media putting that into everybody's mind that, somehow it's normal when less than 1% of the population wants to cut their dick off and, wear it as a hat or something like that. But remember, Julian Assange came to fame roughly in that 2010 period, leaking all this damning information. You remember the helicopter video, which I don't think we have here to show you today, but you probably mentally remember this, showing Americans laughing as they're gunning down Iraqis during the Iraq War. He's leaked countless videos like this, email hacks, etc., which only prove the criminality of the U.S. government. So, who is Julian Assange? What is and are his motivations? Can he be trusted? Is he intelligence for somebody else? Now, if you do some basic research on Assange, you'll know that he was born in 1971. He's an Australian computer programmer, publisher, and journalist, editor-in-chief of the organization WikiLeaks, which he founded in 2006. It goes on to say that since November 2010, Assange has been subject to extradition to Sweden, where he's wanted for questioning concerning an allegation of rape, which is total bullshit, by the way. I mean, they're just looking to pull another rabbit out of their hat, I suspect. Again, I don't have the evidence in front of me, but again, they want to discredit him as like some kind of rapist or child molester, even though, Bill gets away with these shenanigans and nobody seems to care. But they want to discredit these type of people that are getting the truth out. Again, all he's doing is leaking the truth, and all the mainstream media is doing, and the political establishment, is trying to discredit him. So of course he denies this. I think it's total BS. While he was being extradited from the Kingdom of Sweden to the United States of America due to this perceived role in publishing secret American documents, Ecuador offered him essentially salvation, which is where he's holed up today. Questions pop in mind. Well, is Julian Assange, is he an asset of somebody else then? He could be. One thought that pops to mind is he an asset of Russia, for example, because Vladimir Putin would have every reason to try to bring down Hillary Clinton and her campaign and promote a Donald Trump win this election cycle. I think that to be legitimately the case. I don't believe in the conspiracy at all that the DNC is putting out, Hillary Clinton and her campaign is putting out, that somehow Trump is connected to Russia. I don't think that at all. But I do think Putin is helping to propel that narrative and message. And of course, anything anti-Hillary is pro-Putin's interests, in my opinion, because it ruffles the feathers of the current political structure in establishment politics and puts somebody into place that I think behind closed doors, as they're probably doing vodka shots with the rest of the oligarchs in Putin's palace. By the way, I don't know if you've ever seen his palace. Go look it up on the internet. It's freaking crazy. This guy lives like a king. I think, whether or not they say it publicly or not, know and think, at least, I'm not saying this is going to happen, that they'll be able to have their way with Donald Trump, who's not a career politician, who's not a part of the criminal political establishment that is actually working against Putin, Moscow, and Russia today, which is why I think he's even personally involved in bringing down Hillary Clinton, does not like her. Remember, Hillary has likened Putin to Hitler. There's been others that have likened him to Satan. So is Julian Assange, is he this legitimate truth teller, or is he just indirectly working almost as an asset of Russia because it goes along with the same narrative and same game plan? So he's held up, again, in the Ecuadorian embassy. I found a couple interesting facts many of you may or may not know. Assange was born in Queensland, the city of Townsville, to Christine Ann Hawkins, a visual artist, and John Shipton, an anti-war activist and builder. So his biological father, John, an anti-war activist and builder, although his parents separated before Assange, well, I guess before he was born. When he was a year old, his mother married Richard Brett Assange, obviously he took the name, an actor with whom she ran a small theater company. Then they divorced around 1979. It goes on and on. Talks a little bit more about his personal life. I found it interesting that he comes from a family of theater and actors, which is, again, pretty interesting because he's on camera now. He's a part of, even if that is propaganda for truth and propaganda for goodness, he's still very much the face of WikiLeaks. Without him, who represents that face? It's just kind of interesting that there's the performance artist background in his family. In 1987, Assange began hacking under the name Mindax. He and two others, known as Trax and Prime Suspect, form a hacking group they call the International Subversives. During this time, he hacked into the Pentagon, other U.S. Department of Defense facilities, Milnet, the U.S. Navy, NASA, and Australia's Overseas Telecommunications Commission, Citibank, Lockheed Martin, Motorola, Panasonic, and Xerox. It goes on and on. But we really didn't hear about him. People really didn't get who Julian Assange was till roughly 2010, when he began to leak these cables courtesy of people like Bradley Manning and, you know, this damning evidence of the...
Connection's like off right now.
Is it? Okay. Okay. I guess we've got a bad connection here, Facebook. Give us just a minute to figure that out. In the meantime, Facebook, why don't you put your comments, questions in the comment box below. I will get to them. I might just start going to them as we're waiting here for a stream. Nicholas King says, well, only time will tell, but it could be nothing. Or like the biggest troll in history. But I hope it's something. Hillary obviously has something wrong with her health, and taking down the rest of the Clintons is just gravy. And really, she's sowed this herself, right? You know, they always position Assange and Snowden like these guys are terrorists. Many officials have called for a public assassination of people like Julian Assange and Edward Snowden, etc., when all they're doing, folks, is leaking the truth. That's it. They're just shining a light on the criminal activity of these politicians or these banksters, and then people are calling for their assassination. You see, it just goes to show you how criminal and corrupt these people are, how corrupt the Clintons are, how corrupt their foundation is. Even Bill said, her husband, potentially the first male first lady, said that he would step down from the board and basically close up shop once Hillary becomes president of the United States, if she does, and that's the outcome. But at that point, they'll no longer need the foundation that basically raised all the funds through this pay-to-play scam that got him to the White House in the first place. So it really is Don Corleone type tactics, right? You make me an offer that I can't, that you can't refuse. So that's really what we have today in American politics, and the mainstream establishment media is always pointing fingers like all these other countries are corrupt, China, Russia. They live in a totalitarian police state, when in reality, we live in a police state here in the USA. We live under a totalitarian government. It's people like myself, truth tellers, leakers, with a much larger platform like Julian Assange and Edward Snowden point out that we live in the most totalitarian, Orwellian surveillance state in the history of the world. And all the media can do, the mainstream media and these politicians can do to respond, is just say that these people should be killed. Dottie says, I'm so sick of promises to thwart or indict her. Nothing is happening, nothing is going to happen because so many idiots back her to the nth degree. Well, although I can understand those sentiments, Dottie, and a part of me agrees with you, and I've had similar commentary in the past, what I will say, as we talked about earlier in this broadcast, in the beginning, is that there is credence to this warning in this bombshell, potentially, because the last time he said he was going to leak something big, he did, and it not only ruffled the feathers of the DNC, it exposed the criminal activity occurring, and not only did Debbie Wasserman Schultz have to step down and a resignation was forced, although Hillary Clinton took her under her wing right after because she's going to protect her own criminals and protect her own and send a message to the world, a total of 5 people, according to Assange, have also stepped down or been fired as a result. So I think that there is some legitimacy to this threat and this warning to bring down Hillary Clinton. Rucat says, what do you think was done to make Comey recommended no charges? By the way, I didn't know the FBI could make recommendations like doctors. Contrary to the law. Well, I think that's pretty easy to understand. The FBI is bought and paid for by the same people, so either Comey was pressured at the very least, or he was threatened not to bring charges. Remember, he said that they don't think that she had intent, even though she committed a crime, and that's a very serious thing, and she broke the law because she didn't have intent. They don't think behind it that they're not going to bring prosecution charges against her, which is just total BS, sets a horrible precedent for the American public, our communities, our children. We saw the same thing with the bankster bailouts in 2008, 2009. Nobody went to jail. We just gave them free money. They essentially put a gun to our head and said, hey, we're just going to rob you. We're going to take trillions and trillions of dollars because we can. We're going to bail ourselves out, and nobody's going to go to jail. So it's the same thing now. Again, and we're going live back on YouTube here, so we'll see if we can't pick up this stream again. So hold your thoughts there, and we'll go to more and more questions here.
3, 2, 1.
Hey everybody, we are back. We are picking up our live stream again. We had some internet connectivity issues, even though we're running a very fast connection. We've got a hard wire connected into our computer. We're also picking up wireless at the same time. And again, this is just kind of reality of our program. And it's a good time to talk about it because this is why we need your support, guys. This is why we need your help. This is why for the price of a cup of coffee, $4.95 or a month or $49.95 a year, you can go to our website right now, subscribe on demand, and you can help support what we're doing so our live stream doesn't go down, so we can invest in better equipment, cameras, a better internet connection, so that I can bring guests on the show, so that we can travel to events. I can conduct more interviews with people like Dinesh D'Souza, the infamous filmmaker, people like Steve Forbes, etc. We need your support because we're really doing everything that we can on a shoestring. So I want to get back, and hopefully this connection doesn't go down again. If it does, and you're tuning in on YouTube, our backup is we're also running, and we'll splice this video later, we're also airing live on Facebook. I think, to bring you all back here into the conversation, that there is legitimacy to Julian Assange warning that he can potentially bring her down and force an indictment before the presidential debates. And I talked about this in the last live stream that we did. Donald Trump is going to destroy Hillary Clinton on camera. He is absolutely going to eat her freaking heart out. They know that they can't prepare for it. They can't prepare for him. I mean, look how he's filling up stadiums. I saw him at a town hall with Hannity last night as well in Austin, Texas. He has so much support. I, honest to God, think that the American people want to see him crucify Hillary Clinton during the debates, which is absolutely what he should do. And he should go after her jugular. He's called her a bigot. That was the latest line that came out, his politically incorrect line, which I agree with. I think is probably too soft. He should go after her foundation, the pay-to-play scam, which I saw Mike Pence talking about yesterday, which I think speaks very well for himself. It seems like a very intelligent pick on my part. When we spoke with Steve Forbes at Freedom Fest, he had actually indicated that he thought, it's not going to be Newt. Newt would be a part of the cabinet, etc., but he thought it very likely could be Pence. Remember, Forbes and Trump are friends. They talk to each other on the phone, etc. They're in the same circles. So it was almost like he was kind of telegraphing to us at the time, like, look, this is what's going to happen. He also said, and I find very interesting, that this election is for Trump's to lose, which I think he's foreshadowing, again, something that maybe the American people don't know, but he knows. And this has been, even before talking with Forbes, my prediction, and I'm not happy about it, I'm not excited about it or anything like that, but it's been my prediction, and this is actually what's happening now, and this goes back over a year and a half now, because I've got videos to prove it. I had suggested and essentially predicted, and of course I don't have a crystal ball or anything like that, but I predicted that Donald Trump would get the GOP nominee. He'd become the nominee. He'd destroy his competition. Okay, so we're moving here to Facebook. Looks like we're having severe problems here on YouTube today. So we'll splice this in to make it a cohesive video after we're done. That he would be the nominee. He would smoke his competition. It would come down to the wire as we approach November. The margin would get thinner and thinner, which is what we're seeing now, closer and closer, where it's a dead heat. It would come down to a gnat's ass right at the very end to appear and look like Donald Trump's going to win, and then it's going to go to Hillary because it's already been decided, it's already been selected, she's already been selected, and the whole thing's rigged, and your vote doesn't count. It's rigged. Just like we see big tech rigging the search algorithm now, they can obviously rig the vote. Even though I know they're not doing, complete digital vote count now, but there's other ways to rig it. It's a scam and it's a rigged job, and Donald Trump has even warned you about it. As a result of that, I think Trump has served, and this is why the elites are pushing him in this position, as America's catharsis, as, what kind of creates that political vacuum and gets all that anger out, because people are so angry, they're so pissed that they've been raped, they're so angry at the bailouts, they're so angry of this, criminal activity at the highest law of the land, the banksters, the Federal Reserve printing money out of thin air, the scam that makes up America today. So he serves as that catharsis, which is why I think they put him in the position that he is. They're going to make it appear like the American people had a choice in this, even though they don't, but then he loses. And it further splinters the country. I think essentially there is a literal and figurative civil war. And we see the development of a third party. Not only do we see an alternative to the one-party system, Republicans and Democrats, and really Donald Trump's not Republican, right? He's really running an alternative platform. So we see that develop, and I think going into the next election, in another 4 years, who knows, he might run again if he loses. And again, I hope this doesn't happen. It's just what I think is going to happen. We see the development, the rise of an alternative party, where it's kind of this new form of libertarianism, an alternative perspective, and freedom fight, which is a great thing. I mean, this is amazing. This is awesome. I mean, this plays into the alt-right, the alt-media, something, by the way, that Hillary Clinton is going to be speaking about today, that I also talked about a week ago, because I could see it coming before it happened, that the only way the establishment could respond to what's happening, because they're losing so badly and the people don't trust news organizations like CNN, Fox, MSNBC anymore, is to demonize the alt-right, which is exactly what her team's been doing and exactly what they're going to do today with Hillary's latest speech. Now, that's how I would advise her as well if I was one of her political operatives, but this is what they're doing. So now they're going to play the demonization card because they have nothing left. So it would be the best thing on the planet if Julian Assange was able to bring this truth to the public, whatever it is, and potentially it derailed Hillary Clinton and forced the hand of this political establishment and either brought prosecution charges and potentially an indictment, or it forced her down off her engineered pedestal. Julian Assange goes on to say that the next leak on Clinton, Dems will have unexpected angles. We have a lot of pages of material, thousands of pages of material, Assange told Fox News in a televised interview. It's a variety of different types of documents and different types of institutions that are associated with the election campaign. Some quite unexpected angles that are, quite interesting, some even entertaining. I think he's referring to her health there. I think it's significant, he added. It depends on how it catches fire in the public and in the media. Assange, who is currently wanted for extradition by Sweden on sexual assault charges and who could be implicated for his involvement, etc., etc. So I think it's a very serious thing. And I believe the warning. Again, investigate Julian Assange for yourself. I think that, based on kind of my studies of the situation, I think that his roots seem pretty legitimate as a hacker, as an activist, as a truth teller. I think, though, he's probably very likely being positioned by other intelligence agencies in other countries. I think, both the U.S. and Russia, for example, use him whenever that narrative is convenient to push a particular message. Again, Putin's objective is to bring down Hillary Clinton and to ruffle the feathers of this political establishment in Washington, D.C., because Donald Trump doesn't play ball. Yes, he comes from corporate America, etc. He's a billionaire. Maybe that's tough for a lot of the people to relate to, but he's not a part of this political ploy to control these politicians. What was interesting is, like, at the town hall, Hannity, Donald Trump's son Eric, talked about what a great leader that his father is, his dad, all the companies, all the people that he employs, and he even referenced that, and made this reference that the American people are Donald Trump's employees, and that he's going to treat you really well. I'm like, wait a minute here. You're our employee. We're not your employees. You're serving us. In fact, and I make this argument all the time with, Barack Obama or Hillary Clinton or any of these other politicians. These people are our servants, not the other way around. So, Donald Trump, and I don't think they meant it this way, but it came out this way. I just think it was kind of a stupid thing to say. The American people aren't your employees. You're our employee. In fact, worse than that, you're our servant. You do what we tell you, whether or not you're Donald Trump or you're Hillary Clinton, or you're, Barack Obama, who's too busy golfing to, show up in Milwaukee or, Louisiana, these places, and then he just reminds, the news that, oh, I'm going to be out of the office in a couple months anyway, so it doesn't matter. Well, I'm not convinced he leaves the office. Clinton on foundation attacks. I know there's a lot of smoke and there's no fire. When have you ever heard that? You've heard it before, that where there's smoke, there is fire. But Clinton wants you to believe here that I know there's a lot of smoke. I know it looks like hell. And I know I look like a criminal. And I know we've been taking hundreds of millions of dollars. And I know we've been lying. And I know I just blamed Colin Powell, an African-American black man, for building my own private email infrastructure, which is incredibly racist. I know that it looks like there's a lot of fire. There's a lot of smoke, but there's not a fire. Yeah, like Benghazi never happened. Like it wasn't a terrorist attack when they told us that. Like it wasn't coordinated on the anniversary of September 11th, 2001. Hillary Clinton slammed Donald Trump and issued a strong defense of the Clinton Foundation Wednesday amid the Republican nominee's claims that she used public office for personal gain. Speaking to CNN's Anderson Cooper in her first national news interview in nearly a month, Clinton pushed back against Trump's accusations and issued perhaps her most succinct answers on her use of a private email server during her time leading the State Department. What is the Clinton Foundation and why is it so controversial? What Trump has said is ridiculous. Clinton said, "My work as Secretary of State was not influenced by any outside forces. I made policy decisions based on what I thought was right." She added, "I know there's a lot of smoke, but there's no fire." Bullshit, 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 bullshit. We're back, YouTube. The third time we've broken from our YouTube stream. Again, please support us. We'll fix these things. You can do it on demand, $4.95 a month, $49.95 a year. That's all it takes. It's a freaking cup of coffee. I bought a couple cups of coffee today, and for the price of that, you can support our entire infrastructure. And we go to war with the mainstream media. We put our asses on the line on your behalf to deliver the truth. Very important stories the mainstream media is fearful to report on. And it's time the American people force the hand, which is absolutely what they're doing. Force the hand of the media, force the hand of the political establishment, force the hand of the banking establishment. One of the things I don't like about Donald Trump is I don't think he's going to go after the bankers. And I want him to go after the bankers. See, if I was president of the United States, the first task on my agenda would be to prosecute not just people like Hillary Clinton, but all of the too big to fail banksters and banks. They would stand a trial, as is the American way. They would be evaluated by a jury of their peers, and if convicted, would serve, just like they did in Iceland, real pound me in the ass prison time. Real pound me in the ass prison time. Not just, the scapegoats like Bernie Madoff with everybody's money, who was a criminal and did something horrible and terribly wrong, but is about this big compared to what the people at Goldman Sachs achieved, or the people at Merrill Lynch, or the people at JP Morgan Chase, UBS, these other large financial institutions. He was just a scapegoat. He was a little bitty guy. So that's actually one of the things I don't like about Donald Trump. I also do not like his stance on surveillance at all. He thinks we need more surveillance. I think he's 110% wrong. We do not need more surveillance. I was even reading in California in some of the elite neighborhoods, because these are the people with money, they're taking their neighborhoods off of Google Maps, working with Google, because they've got connections. So you can't find their house. They don't allow drones in the area. They're hidden. They can't be found. So that's what the elites are doing. Again, They're pushing the Orwellian surveillance on you while they hide themselves from the internet, from real estate listings, from the general quote-unquote communities. Let's go to some Facebook questions here now that we're back. We're now live again on YouTube. We've got nearly 150 comments here and growing. Stacy says no perjury charges, no charges for obstruction, no charges for deleting files or ordered under subpoena. This is HRC, Hillary Rodham Clinton, could kill a kid in public and it wouldn't change anything. No media, no Department of Justice, and no difference among her supporters, period. Well, she's kind of already done that, to be honest. I mean, again, not only was she indirectly responsible for the death of Khazar Khan's son by voting for the Iraq War and continuing the atrocities that made up George W. Bush's administration, but there's hundreds of thousands of people, including children, dead in places like Syria. I do want to get to, and make sure I get to today, that in addition to, I think, this Julian Assange story being probably the biggest bombshell story that we need to be talking about right now, I also think, and we put out a warning last week, and I think I'm dead on about it, there's a lot of saber rattling, in Ukraine right now. And I think that Putin is about to act. There's 40,000 some plus troops in Crimea right now. And again, Putin did not invade. He did not destabilize this part of the world. The U.S. did through her covert operations and her allies by overthrowing the rightful, legitimate leader of Ukraine in the name of Viktor Yanukovych. I'm not saying Viktor Yanukovych was a good guy, just like I don't say Bashar al-Assad was a good guy, just like I don't say Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi was a good guy, but I know the facts. I think he's going to make a move in this period as we're approaching the actual election results where there's a lot of uncertainty with leadership and just, politics in general. This would be the time to act because I don't think America would be prepared on how to react to something like that as he's playing, these chess moves. Maybe they, launch some airstrikes, and then of course they'd position Putin like he's Hitler and he's invaded, even though there's no truth or basis to that at all. But this would be the time to act. So a lot of saber rattling in this part of the world, not just Ukraine, but also Syria. Of course, we know the United States wants to push out Bashar al-Assad at all costs. This is the agenda. Now, I was listening to, and we had a video on this. I don't think we'll be able to go to it, especially since we're having some internet connection problems today. But Nigel Farage out of the UK that helped to promote the Brexit, right? And everybody said it was going to be the end of the world and that, World War III was going to come. And he was even selling it that way during the speech, which I think occurred either yesterday or the day before that.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Nigel Farage.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you, and good evening, Mississippi. I come to you from the United Kingdom with a message of hope and a message of optimism. It's a message that says, if the little people, if the real people, if the ordinary decent people are prepared to stand up and fight for what they believe in, we can overcome the big banks. We can overcome the multinationals.
I think they're a little bit wrong, to be honest, because I think World War III is coming no matter what. People say, oh, Christopher, you say this all the time, aren't we? Well, we're already at war now. Okay, it took over a decade. I don't know if any of you know this, a decade before the American media admitted that we were at war in Vietnam, for example. It took over a freaking decade. They wouldn't admit it. Well, I think the same thing's happening now in American politics, American media today, establishment media. It's taken about a decade, if not longer, for us to admit this is World War III. And again, when would you act if you were Putin? If I was Putin, I'm sitting in my palace, I'm kicking back vodka shots with these oligarchs. I'm telling you, if you're a chess player, you hit America in the nuts right now. You go for the jugular. You act when America is weak, fiscally, economically, politically with this election, all this uncertainty. Another reason he wants Trump in there. I think Trump's the right guy, but the reason Putin wants him in there because he knows he doesn't work for the rest of these people. He knows that he can slap America around at that point and have his way. You know, I personally think this. I think there's reality. I think Donald Trump, if he gets in, which would be fantastic, will surround himself with the right people, which is exactly what he's doing now. He'll create a great cabinet of experienced politicians and all this stuff, but I don't think he's going to be able to get anything done, or even in the best case scenario, as much as he wants to get done because of the roadblocks. You know, if Republicans lose the, both houses, or, that scenario plays out, or, Supreme Court judges, et cetera, where he's just kind of deadlocked. Another reason why I think Putin wants Trump there, not because he cares about Trump or anything, but that he can basically slap America around at that point. He's going to have America by the balls, as he does today, because no great nation, enemy or not, respects the United States at all. They laugh at us. We are a laughing stock. We are the transgender laughingstock of the world. I mean, really, they laugh. Again, it would be interesting to be a fly on the wall, because I guarantee they're slamming vodka shots in their palace, hanging around with the rest of the Russian oligarchs, and they're just having a grand old time. They're like, isn't this great? America is burning. People forget, this happened in Russia with the collapse of the USSR in the former Soviet Union. We saw that disintegration. We saw famine. We saw, such a horrible situation. But people here in America, because they're too busy doing this all day, finding their next Pokemon, they just don't think that this can happen here. Well, I'm here to tell you it can. I think I brought up before, but my grandmother, who lived well into her 90s, who died a very successful, wealthy woman because they had earned it along with my grandfather their entire lives. And had a very difficult upbringing and were brought up during the Great Depression, saved every last penny to her dying days. Even when she was like 93, and she was, maybe she wasn't 100% with it. It's like she still wanted to spend. It's like, Grandma, you don't have much time left here on this earth. Like, don't save any of this for me, or, do something for yourself. But see, she feared that situation because she knew because she lived through it, just like my grandfather did. Things can change like that overnight. We saw a little bit of a glimpse in it in 2008, 2009. People were kind of like, holy shit, wow, this can happen? I didn't know this could happen. But then it rocketed back up because, of course, the money handlers and the money changers, the criminal institution that makes up the Federal Reserve, they just pumped into the economy. Right? Like the prostitute that the economy is. I even saw South Park do an episode on this last night where I think it was one of the characters, he's trying to return a margarita machine, so he takes it to the store, sur la table, and they're like, your father bought this on credit, so you got to go to the lender. So he goes to the lender, and the lender's like, actually, we just create the document that does the loan. You got to go to Wall Street. They're the ones actually, and then he goes to Wall Street, says, hey, I want to return this, get my money back. He's like, actually, no, we don't have the paper on that. We can't offer refund either. You're going to have to go to Washington, D.C. So he goes like all the way to Washington. He's at the Capitol building, and he goes behind the scenes, and asks for his money back. And they're like, okay, well, go get your money back. And once he gets into this, dark world, he sees that they're just basically making shit up, creating money out of thin air, that the economy is just an idea, that, if you have a American Express Platinum card, for example, it's just a piece of plastic, just like the paper's not worth the paper that it's printed on. What's the difference between a dollar bill, a $5 bill, a $100 bill? Nothing. It's just faith, because it's not tied to gold, not tied to commodity or anything, so the whole thing's a freaking scam. People like my grandmother knew this because they suffered the repercussions of one of the most tragic, difficult times in American history. But people don't think it can happen now because they're too busy freaking Pokemoning! It can happen again. Again, ask yourself the question. We talked about this ad nauseum, and it's unpopular to say these things because, now that the stock market's levitating and stuff, no one really wants to talk about it. But it will collapse. There will be repercussions. And I think repercussions for a much longer period than just a quick injection like we just saw that doubled the national debt overnight and created this stimulative hooker environment where the banksters get all this free capital so they can borrow at zero in an unlimited fashion and then loan it back out to you and charge interest on the same people they just ripped off and stole from in the amount of trillions and trillions of dollars. You know, what happens if a bomb goes off? What happens if the conflagration spirals out of control in places like Ukraine or Syria? What happens if it's just a random act of terrorism? You know, we are so fragile here in the United States that, God forbid, a suitcase bomb did go off somewhere in this country, and I pray that it does not ever happen. Everything would collapse. Wall Street would collapse, the markets would collapse, ETFs would collapse, stocks would collapse, the bond market, fixed income market would collapse, the dollar would collapse, everything would collapse. They would close down the market, you know, for a while, but then it would collapse when it reopened because we're that fragile. Again, how did they respond to 2008? George W. Bush got on camera post-September 11th, et cetera, post-2008, said, don't be afraid to spend. Yeah, see, South Park is right. It's an idea. Keep spending, America. Keep spending. Spend, spend, spend. Don't let it get you down. Take your kids to Disneyland. Buy more cars. Buy more houses. As they create a bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger bubble. It's all fiction. It's non-reality. Again, it's illusory. It's an illusion. The whole idea of an economy, it's an idea unless it's backed by something, unless it's tied to the gold standard, or even if it's tied digitally to an algorithm that has to be mined, that has some kind of integrity to it. That would be better. I think it's kind of the future direction of where things are going. So when Clinton says, I know that there is a lot of smoke and there is no fire, that has got to go against common sense. I don't even care if you're going to vote for Hillary Clinton. We know that where there is smoke, there is a fire. And there is a big, big fire around this woman. Not just her woman, but also her husband, and the apple don't fall far from the tree. Again, she had been communicating with Chelsea under some kind of pseudonym. Countless confidential memos and documents and classified material. And it's like, no one cares. Just like here on Facebook, people are like, well, she could be photographed, murdering a 5-year-old child, God forbid, and they still want to press charges. Well, there's some truth to that. Linda says Hillary for prison, 2016. Well, Linda, you're just a redneck. How dare you say that about Hillary Rodham Clinton? She's a feminist. She's a woman of the people. Yeah, she's an activist for the LGBT and Q growing community. She's not a racist, even though she made a very racist comment just a couple days ago, blaming Colin Powell as an excuse. She had to backtrack that, by the way, because it is not politically correct at all what she just said. If it was in reverse, they'd be calling it racism. But see, the mainstream media, if you tune on CNN, they always have one Trump supporter, and then they've got 3 or 4 pro-Hillary cheerleaders. And they just attack the one person sitting there. They've actually had the same group of people on several nights in a row. I can't think of everybody by first name, but there's a lovely blonde lady who's like in defense of Donald Trump, and she's just attacked the whole show. It's really kind of hilarious. I mean, no wonder CNN is dropping down in the ratings. They're like 10th now. Fox is actually dominating the ratings. And I'm not saying that, Fox is necessarily 100% transparent 100% of the time. I think they're owned by the same people, to be honest, because they create the false paradigm and narrative that keeps us at war, that's funded by the super PACs and people like George Soros, etc. This really is a conspiracy election. In fact, I thought this was an interesting report. This came from AP, Associated Press, says, welcome to the Trump-Clinton conspiracy election. It's a conspiracy. The 2016 campaign features one candidate who warned against the vast right-wing conspiracy and another who is a leader of the so-called birther movement, right? We're all the new healthers now because Hillary looks so sick. We know for a fact she had a blood clot, hit her head, took her 6 months to recover. She's got hyperthyroidism. No one wants to talk about that. Investigated several Parkinson's and Alzheimer's disease-related drugs. Nobody wants to talk about that. Yeah, we're healthers. It's a conspiracy, Facebook. Yeah, that's right. Put a piece of hay in my mouth. It's a freaking conspiracy, YouTube. You bunch of dipshits. Yeah, you can't think for yourself, can you? It's one big giant conspiracy. You see, all I see are the facts. I see stadiums blowing out and overflowing over Donald Trump. I see people chanting at CNN, do your job, do your job, do your job, do your job. That's what I see. But it's all a conspiracy, according to these people. Just like Hillary Clinton will say that Donald Trump is somehow connected to Russia, and they won't call that a conspiracy. Don Lemon won't call that a conspiracy at all. but they'll say it's a conspiracy when you question her health. And you probably can't see this picture. Maybe you can on Facebook. I don't know if you can see this. Maybe you can see it on YouTube. Probably not. But she's like, huh? Huh? Again, it's one big freaking conspiracy. New Hillary info could swing election if it catches fire. And again, I hope it does. I hope that Julian Assange shines such a giant light on Hillary Clinton that it forces, at the very least, her resignation and possibly potentially criminal charges, a prosecution, and also an indictment. And I'm sure they'll call for his head right after that, right? He's the terrorist, folks, for just telling the truth. You know, when you were growing up as a kid, didn't people tell you to tell the truth? Like, don't lie. Don't even do white lies. You know, those aren't good. You know, just tell the truth, right? You know, you raise your kids with integrity. You tell them, you know, even if it's hard, sometimes the hardest thing is to walk the fire and just tell the truth. You know, there might be repercussions to it. You tell your kids, do the right thing. Tell the truth. So what does Julian Assange do? He tells the truth. What do our politicians say? Kill him! Get him! Assassinate him! That's their response. And people say we don't live in a fallen world, that we don't live in an evil world. You know, sometimes I'll just see that almost kind of overwhelmingly, and I'll feel it just in my consciousness, like it's almost overwhelming, like there's just so much evil out there. Like, how can these people be this bad? How can our society be this tragic? You know, it almost makes you just want to remove yourself from it. You know, and believe me, I've got fantasies sometimes. Like, you know what? You know, I just might turn off the lights. You know, I'm just going to go off the grid completely and just live a pleasant life. I'm going to farm or something. Just give me a shovel and a freaking rake. Because it's so bizarre. It's so crazy. It's so insane. These people are so evil. And it's just tough to comprehend. Like, why are the people doing this? And I think it comes back that we live in a very evil, fallen world. And people ask me, like, why are you so angry on camera all the time? Because it's angering to see these people get away with this stuff. It's angering to see people hurt. It's angering to see hundreds of thousands of people dead in Syria. It's angering to see innocent Muslim Americans in this country, peaceful ones, persecuted by this machine that makes up the mainstream media. I'm not Muslim. But it's angering, it's frightening, it's scary. It's not what America stands for at all. We stand for a freedom-based, liberty-oriented society that has integrity. And when the evil takes over to an extent, that we become ruled by the kings and queens again, and it becomes that tyrannical environment that we fought against, that we refresh our country and we refresh our rights, so to speak, through the blood of tyrants and the blood of patriots. You know, it was less than 10%, they'll say, some historians, probably even less than that, like less than 5% that fought the American Revolution, that actually picked up arms. And we won. That's why people always ask me for years, like, Chris, why do you even do this, man? It's like, are things really going to change, you know? You know what? We're the 5%. We become the 10%. We grow to the 15%. More of you subscribe, promote our platform, share our content. We put 20%, 30%, 40%, 50%. We don't even need that. We can do it with 5%. That's what keeps me going. That's what keeps me shining the light, acting on your behalf, which again is an honor to do. And I thank you very much for putting me in this hot seat. George Soros goes on to say, this is from the Daily Caller, globalization will increase migration pressures, which has all been orchestrated from the get-go, by the way. Right? I mean, the quickest way to overthrow a country is bring other people in that shouldn't be there in the first place. It's how you overthrow a nation. It's what we've seen here in the United States of America. While the Republican Party can't stand on its own 2 feet, you keep the borders open, you have them all come in, it crumbles the entire system, everybody goes on welfare. Not that I'm against welfare or anything like that, not that I'm against immigration. But they promote illegal immigration. They create and fabricate the crisis in places like the Middle East that has people crossing the border, that foments the terrorism, that creates Al-Qaeda, which becomes ISIS. Then they use that as the red flag terror alert to take away and steal your freedom and create the surveillance state as it is today and use it as justification. It's so freaking easy. I mean, you can see it from a high level. Like if you were these people, it's like Hunger Games, right? It's all an illusion. You know, the American Idol, type scenario. Pinning the people against each other. This is all a part of the master plan. These are the people that run the show. People like George Soros, who looks like he's died 5 different times. I mean, could you look any worse, George? I mean, come on, you're a billionaire, man. Can't you get some like plastic surgery or something? Or maybe it'd be popular if you went transgender, install some tits too, and walk around with those. At least we could stare at your double Ds, and I wouldn't have to look at your ugly face. George Soros Open Society Foundation is anticipating an increase in migration pressures in the coming decades due in part to globalization, according to a leaked memo outlining a proposed strategy for successfully influencing immigration. I can't get the tits out of my mind. George, you need to install some tits. Again, it's popular in this country to be LGBTQ or binary, so get some nice tits so we don't have to look at your ugly face anymore, okay? Okay, I'll put that out to your people. I know you got people that kind of handle this sort of thing, but it's a good recommendation. I mean, look at Caitlyn. She's done really well for herself. Formerly Bruce, right? She had, 2 shows and now it's been canceled. Something to consider. I wish we could play the video, but I don't think we can, so you have to look it up. But the Nigel Farage and the whole Brexit thing too, because when I was watching it last night, it was almost like we were shooting, or Trump was, and Farage, they were like shooting themselves in the foot because they're like assuming that the same thing is going to happen in the United States, even though they said that there wouldn't be a Brexit and they totally fear-mongered around it, etc., but then they won. And now, Cameron's got to step down. I almost felt like with the speech, although it was a really good one and I agree with it, that they are foreshadowing kind of Trump's demise. I know that sounds like so shitty. It sucks, but I really kind of felt like that was happening, although Farage had a lot of good things to say, and he's 100% right on. But again, I don't trust the election, folks. I think it's rigged, just like Donald Trump does. That's why I was telling you it's rigged. That's why he's also forming his own media company right now, and he's aligning with alt-right, Breitbart, InfoWars, AMTV. We're the small guys. I point that out a lot. We're not as big as a lot of you guys think we are, which is why we need your support, why our internet stream keeps dropping. Donald Trump has spent the week calling for African Americans to uproot voter trends, reject the bigotry of Hillary Clinton, and vote for him in November. But Wednesday night, Trump escalated the line of attack and labeled Clinton herself a bigot. Now, you know that Don Lemon, Anderson, Pooper are going to go after this one, right? So is Hillary Clinton. She's going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe I was called a bigot. Look at that politically incorrect guy again calling me a bigot, even though I think that's, pretty light. Quote, Hillary Clinton is a bigot who sees people of color only as votes, not as human beings worthy of a better future, Trump said, reading from prepared remarks. Unlike past lines that have drawn scrutiny, including Monday's comments in Ohio about African Americans not being able to walk the streets without being shot, this one was not a Trump ad lib. Goes on and on. Again, there was a nice speech with Nigel. And I looked up, too, how tall Donald Trump is. I guess he's 6'2". Looked like Nigel was like 6'1" or something like that. Just kind of a little interesting factoid. So I wanted to go through a list of media companies who have donated to the Clinton Foundation slush fund, just so you know who's in on this, right? Who's in on this pay to play? What organizations, what people are behind this criminal entity that makes up the Hillary Clinton Foundation? And it basically breaks this down into ranges, with the highest dollar amounts going to the lowest dollar amounts. Carlos Slim, the Mexican, chairman and CEO of Telmex, largest New York Times shareholder as well, donated between $1 million and $5 million. No wonder they don't like Trump. They put all their eggs in the basket with Hillary, right? Makes sense. Pay to play. Here's your down payment, Hillary. Do what I tell you to do, puppet. James Murdoch, Chief Operating Officer, 21st Century Fox, Newsmax, Thomas Reuters, again, between $1 million and $5 million in donations. And it goes on to list Google, between $500,000 and $1 million, News Corporation Foundation, philanthropic arm of former Fox News parent company, Houghton Mifflin Harcourt, publisher, Richard Mellon Scaife, Abigail Disney, documentary filmmaker, Bloomberg, Howard Stringer, former CBS News and Sony executive, Intermountain West Communications Company, Mort Zuckerman, owner of the New York Daily News and U.S. News and World Report, Hollywood Foreign Press Association, Viacom, Knight Foundation, Public Radio International, Turner Broadcasting, parent company of CNN. You got Fox and CNN, both donating to Hillary. Do what we want. Here's your down payment. Dance for me, puppet. NBC Universal, Public Broadcasting Service, Huffington Post Media Group, the Washington Post Company, and there's probably some other donors, smaller dollar amounts, but those are the big ones, amounting in the millions and millions and millions of dollars. Dance for me, puppet. Dance. See Fox, CNN, both donating. putting into the slush fund, the criminal. I mean, it kind of makes you wonder, too, why does Hillary and Bill, like, why do they even want to be in the White House? I mean, seriously, even if they throw the election, it seems like they're doing quite well for themselves, raking in hundreds of millions of dollars just with the Clinton Foundation. Maybe just stick with that. But no, they're power hungry. These are egocentric, evil maniacs. That's all they care about. Again, what keeps me up at night is the evil. You know, how could these people do these kinds of things? How could she launch a tirade against people like Vince Foster, and best case scenario, he suicided himself, and maybe he was killed? How can they do these things? I mean, how can they sleep at night? Invading and overthrowing these rightful sovereign nations in the Middle East. How can they sleep at night with the blood on their hands of, close to 500,000 dead Syrians? How do they do this? How do they look themselves in the mirror? Maybe they're just so insulated within the power structure itself that everyone just kind of like cheers them on. They're all, butt buddies or something. But it's scary. It's frightening. Also, ask yourself this: why is Joe Biden currently in Turkey when Obama should be there and holding a press conference with Turkish Prime Minister, Turkish Prime Minister, when Obama or John Kerry should be doing that? Is that because Joe Biden would be replacing Hillary Clinton on November's ballot? So let's go back to the bombshell. Julian Assange, let's say she's indicted for the presidential debates. Well, then what happens? Obama third term? Biden replace her? I don't know. Does that help Trump? Interesting, isn't it? Oh, and then especially, too, if Putin makes a move, which I think is likely to happen. Escalation of tension in a place like, what happens? What do they do? How do they respond? I mean, how is Obama going to respond to that when he's golfing, working on his putting? Well, what is America going to do? What if there's some kind of crisis? I mean, God forbid something else happened, another dagger's thrown at it. What do we do there? Biden inspects damage at Turkish parliament from failed coup, which a lot of people think was engineered to get rid of his the counter-revolution in Turkey. In a visit to Turkey today, Vice President Joe Biden sought to ease heightened tensions with Turkey as the country continues to recover from a failed coup attempt last month. In a press conference alongside Turkish Prime Minister, Biden offered a message of solidarity and understanding while pushing back against some in the Turkish government who have assigned complicity to the U.S. in the coup attempt. At the same time, Biden said he understands the intense feeling against U.S.-based Muslim cleric who the Turkish government is accused of orchestrating the coup. So basically, these are kind of like backdrop stories, which I'd like you to research even on your own. You guys can do, I mean, you guys are, people tell me, they're like, man, Chris, I love your show, man. I feel like I'm so part of it. You are friggin' part of it. I mean, dude, investigate for yourself. Like, send me your emails. Like, I read them all the time. I try to go through all the comments. I have people that help me with that too now. Obviously, can't read everything, but like, you are the media. Like, did you see what just happened with Hillary Clinton's health? It forced the hand of the mainstream media. Everybody's talking about it now. You are the media. You are a part of this. You are AMTV. You are alternative media television. You are the alt-right. You are this uprising. You are this movement. So, these stories are the outliers that probably should be, talked about, but nobody's really talking about it right now. Hillary today plans speech against the alt-right. I told you they demonize us. They're going to demonize Breitbart. They're going to demonize Stephen Bannon. They're going to demonize Donald Trump. They're going to demonize InfoWars, Alex Jones, AMTV, myself. It's all they've got left. It's a that's kind of like my warning, is expect that. They're going to demonize you. Oh, these are crackpot conspiracy theorists, right? These are gun-toting crazy people, right? Yeah, we're really crazy. I'm a prototype of that. Just, pretty smart intellectual guy, Division I All-American, private public school, graduated at the top of his class, now runs this organization. We're definitely a bunch of rednecks here, have no idea what we're doing. Yeah, just dropping the internet all the time, which I guess is happening because we lack the resources and the infrastructure that we need. See, that's where you guys come in. I know you guys can't do everything for us, but we need good people to join our ranks, right? We need good people. Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton plans to attack the alt-right during a speech in Reno, Nevada on Thursday. At the same time, as I discussed a long, long time ago, the polls would narrow. They would get super, super, super close, and it would come right to a crux. You can't really see that gnat because it's pretty small, but it's going to come down, in my opinion, to a gnat's ass. And then Trump's going to lose because the whole thing was rigged in the first place. But according to an Arizona poll, Trump 43%, Clinton 38%. This was pulled from the Twitter feed of CNN, if they are to be believed. UPI, see voter poll, Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump remain within 1 percentage point. So it is narrowing. At the same time, Julian Assange plans to indict Hillary before the September 26th debate. And then there's, 3 other debates after that. Look up a schedule, just Google presidential debates. You can find out. But the upcoming September 26th, we don't got a lot of time. Julian Assange has threatened to leak a bombshell. Now watch our video that we put out about a week or 2 ago. That one also went viral on Julian Assange, titled like Julian Assange bombshell or something like that. Still circulating. That was then. That was like when Debbie Wasserman Schultz and that stuff was coming. Now this is now. Let me go to some questions. And thank you for tuning in, bearing with the conditions here today and the falling of the streams. We'll try to package this up really nicely for you guys. Post this production. Thank you for your support, all the questions. I'd like to go to a few more before we close out today. Looks like we're up to like 200 comments now on Facebook. And I did do an AMA, like an Ask Me Anything. I put it out there. I don't know anyone who responded to. I'm like, hey, AMA, ask me anything, and I'll respond on an upcoming video. So here's your chance. This is actually live. It's pretty cool. Like, you can actually talk to me in real time right now. This is cool. So let's see here. Almost 200 comments. Let me scroll down here so I don't go to some of the earlier ones. Eli says, all of my dead relatives are voting for Hillary. He also says, Assange isn't an agent provocateur. Enough truth to mislead. Stacy says that CNN makes her want to puke. 24/7 Hillary media machine. Journalism is dead. Well, it is in that format. It's not dead here. John says, I suspect if she wins, the sensible right will go after the left in the legal arena while others literally riot in the streets. Yes, I do see that. I do see the splintering. I do see the division. I do see the civil war. Brian says, I think the educational background of political heads is enough to get rid of all of them. Jake says, perhaps a blood clot in her brain will break loose and she'll be toast. Stanley says, and then lose. Yep, I agree big time. The system is rigged. I think it's more of a global thing. Susan, just wish all this smoke would dissipate and allow us to see what's actually happening. Michael says, agree with you, Nicholas King. I wish there were more political musicians out there. I miss Rage Against the Machine. I do think we're seeing that. Again, a splintering. It's helping to create the vacuum of a liberty movement, of this libertarianism, of a third party potentially. Another reason, although my humble opinion, Gary Johnson is only stealing the votes. He's up to like 10% right now on the polls from Donald Trump, is only helping Hillary Clinton. The benefit is if we could get him to the frickin' debate stage, it would help lay the stage, so to speak, for future elections, future debates, as I think people like Donald Trump, even if they lose, may in fact run again in another 4 years, and maybe he wins that time. Another individual says YouTube is censoring your live broadcast. Maybe, because we are running a pretty hard connection. We weren't even on Wi-Fi, and we keep dropping. We're going to end here for today's show. Again, thank you for tuning in. Get this out everywhere. We will repackage it. I want to thank all of you tuning in on Facebook, all of you tuning in on YouTube. People ask me all the time, Christopher, how can you support us? We'll share our content, get it out to the world. Subscribe on demand for the price of the cup of coffee. You can help grow what we do here so we can continue to shine the light of truth on these criminals, people like Hillary Clinton, that I think might go down in a ball of fury in the coming days, according to this warning and threat and very threatening stance and statement made by Julian Assange that has thousands of emails and data dumps to back it up. Again, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Put your comment question in the box below. Get it out everywhere, hard-hitting and in your face.